We are going to start. Everybody here understand English? Somebody doesn't understand English? Okay, this is a bilingual event, so we are going to have some parts in English, some parts in Spanish, but there are going to be some parts in English. The Q&A can be in English or Spanish, okay? Before we start, my name is Javier Molea. I've been doing Spanish events and Spanish translation events for 12 years here in McNally Saxon Books since 2005. And because of the situation we have right now with the immigration and documented immigrants in this country, for this new administration, we have an initiative here in the store that we are asking organizer of the event, we are asking for a collaboration of $100, and then we ask you guys, the public, to collaborate for this initiative. We are gathering money for undocumented migrants that they are in the process of deportation or they have a family member that has been deported. We are sending $1,000 to Maribel Trujillo Diaz. I don't know if you know her. It's a Mexican mother of four American citizens. She has been deported 2 weeks ago. Has been 15 years in the city. But also you're gonna keep looking into this. There's a book about from Valeria Luiselli about the undocumented children that have been held in prisons. And why we are doing this? We never charge admission. You know, in some places, some bookstores, they charge admission. We never charge organizers. But we do this because we understand that we are doing this in Spanish and in English because of these undocumented. They have been coming to this country for generations. For generations, they have been put in the border, mostly Mexican, but from other countries, from Latin America. And without them, we wouldn't do this. Without them, I wouldn't have a shop. We wouldn't have an industry of translation, and we wouldn't have a market for Spanish books. And we have this not because Spanish is a better language than any other one. Probably Polish is all in all is a better language. It has more literary value. I'm saying that as a Uruguayan guy. We have all these people working in an academy, teachers, translators, booksellers, because of this undocumented. And these people today they are hunted down. They are being targeted for this new administration. And anybody can look in the news and can find out this. So I know this darkens the mood. Everybody comes to celebrate, but here, literature or whatever we are celebrating. But we can keep doing business as usual. That here we gather, we take some pictures for Facebook or tweet or Instagram in Soho, in McNally Saxon, and in Queens, probably there is a mother or a father that has been deported this moment, this very moment. So the way, because we do give a fuck about these people, not just about the literature, we are doing this and we ask everybody to collaborate. In this case, the Pen has agreed to tweet this initiative and promote it. But here is the magic box. I'm going to ask everybody, like in the church of AA meetings, to collaborate. Before we start, just give me 5-7 minutes. I'm going to introduce Juan Carlos from the movement New Sanctuary, that you know what is happening today with sanctuary cities, what happened in California, what is happening right now in Texas. Well, New York is kind of in the middle, but Juan Carlos has a very good initiative. I want him to talk about it.
Buenas tardes. I was being interviewed yesterday, and they asked me about the new administration. What was my worst fear? And it took me a while, because there is so many. But then it came down to normalizing the horror that we've been living with. We as undocumented people, we as immigrant communities have been living and being targeted by the past administration, not only this administration. We wouldn't have a Trump if we didn't have an Obama before, if we didn't have the Bushes before, if we didn't have the Clintons before. The difference is that before it was everything done in the silence of the night when our people were being taken away, or people were not really being informed. Nowadays, what the administration is doing in its overly racist practices, it's just a continuation of a policy that has been in place. Trump hasn't implemented anything new, at least within the immigration policies. They've been in place. So the sanctuary movement goes back to the 80s, and back in 2006, after Elvira Arellano, does anybody know who's Elvira Arellano? No? She's a Mexican immigrant who took refuge in one of our churches in San Adalberto in Chicago, because she was going to be deported and she had a son born and raised in the US, and she basically said, I don't want to go because I don't want to deprive my son from the opportunities that his country offers to him. So he went into a church to look for refuge, and he stayed in the church for about a year and a half or so. And then he stepped out and he was taken away and sent back to Mexico. But after she did that, I am an ordained minister, a Lutheran. We basically said, I was walking around the San Antonio River, and we basically said, why don't we do that with our churches? Why don't we open the doors and give the microphone to the people that are being targeted? And that's what we basically did. In 2007, we began to organize, and we launched what has become the new sanctuary movement. So we've been working a lot in the shadows. Trump has given us a lot of fuel nowadays because of his attacks, direct attacks to our community, not only to the undocumented, I have to say. Okay, and we always say that. So here in New York, we have about 200 temples that have become sanctuary. Not only physical sanctuary, but basically citing and declaring themselves publicly in favor and morally protecting our undocumented brothers and sisters. Okay? So I can keep on talking, but they told me that I have all the time that I need in the next 2 minutes, so I have to do this quick. So we have some programs. We are helping people who have recently come. We have an asylum clinic in some of our churches, some of our synagogues. A lot of people from Central America. Once again, the history repeats itself. There is repressive regimes that are killing our leaders, our campesinos, and they are displacing them from their land and taking away the land. A lot of mining companies from the north, Canada, a lot of model cities coming from here, from New York and from other parts of the north, taking over the most valued coastal land that has belonged to the Garifuna people, which is a black indigenous community that extends from Belize to all the way to New Orleans. So they keep coming, and we keep helping them to fill out their asylum applications. We extend sanctuary going into the courts when they have to present themselves. 26 Federal Plaza here on Broadway. It has become one of the most fearful places for our people because they go in many times and they don't come out. So what we do is we accompany them. A lot of us who are ministers, we go with them, we put on our colors, our religious garb, and just as a sign to kind of stop, or at least slow these wheels that keep grinding our people and spitting them out. I have more information. I will leave that in here so that we can hear you. And anybody who wants to contact us, the phone number and our webpage is there thank you for listening, and Feliz Cinco de Mayo. Oh, by the way, I think all of us, if you're Latino, you have become Mexican, because all Mexicans now are Latino, under Trump. Okay, thank you, and if you need any more information, contact us. Thanks a lot, Javier.
¿Qué está pasando ahora? It's not a dystopian Netflix. Está pasando right now, right here. Anyway, we have, guys, some room here on the table. You want to come? 2 things, and then we start with the presentation. One of the persons that I admire the most in the United States is Amy Goodman. She's coming May 9 p.m. Next Tuesday, 9 p.m. is the only presentation in a bookstore. She's going to present Democracy Now! Next Tuesday. And May 12, for those who read Spanish, we have a book club in Spanish. We are reading Mariana Enriquez, el libro en español, el 12. Bueno, muy bien. Muchas gracias al Pen Festival. Thank you, Pen Festival, for bringing us this lineup. They are all my friends. Thank you, the Pen. Thank you, Lina Meruane, because she accepted to be a moderator. And then we have Samanta Schweblin, Pola Oloixarac, Mariana Enriquez. I'm going to read the biographies. Pola Oloixarac is a fiction writer and essayist. Her novels, Savage Theories and Dark Constellations, have been translated into 7 languages. Her writing has appeared in N+1, the New York Times, and Granta, which named her to its list of best young Spanish novelists. She wrote the libretto for the opera Hércules in Mato Grosso in Portuguese, Quechua, and German, that it was presented here in Dixon Place like 2-3 years ago. Samanta Schweblin was born in 1978 in Buenos Aires, where she studied television and cinema. Her short story collection, El núcleo del disturbio, The core of the riot, Pájaros en la boca, Birds in the mouth, and 7 Empty Houses were awarded the Casa de las Américas Juan Rulfo and Rivera del Duero Short Fiction Prizes. Her first novel, published as Fever Dream in English, was awarded the Tigre Juan and Ojo Crítico Prizes and has been nominated for the 2017 Man Booker Prize. Samanta. Congratulations. And I'm sorry, I'm missing Mariana. Mariana, we're going to translate into English because I don't have it. Mariana Enriquez was born in Buenos Aires in 1973. She has a licenciature in periodismo and social communication. She works as editor at the supplement Radar in the Página 12 newspaper, and she teaches at the Universidad Nacional de La Plata. She published the novelas Bajar es lo peor, Cómo desaparecer completamente, las colecciones de Short Stories Collections, Los peligros de fumar en la cama, Cuando hablamos con los muertos y las cosas que perdimos en el fuego, and that's the books that we have here in English, has been translated this year, The Thing We Lost in the Fire. And lastly, my friend Lina Meruane is an award-winning Chilean writer and scholar teaching at New York University. She has authored several non-fiction books and 4 novelas, Sangre en el Ojo, and she received the prestigious Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz Prize in Mexico, and was published 2 years ago, last year, 2 years ago, Seeing Red in Deep Blue. Samanta, Pola, and Mariana has been published this year in English. That's something that is amazing. Thank you everybody for the patience, and please join me to welcome the writers.
So hello everybody, thank you for being here. We were so worried that the rain, the desperate rain that was falling on New York was going to stop people from coming, but fortunately for us, the rain stopped and it's actually quite nice outside for the moment. So I wanted to first of all thank McNally Jackson Bookstore, which has hosted so many events for the Spanish-speaking community, in Spanish and English and sometimes other languages, and has been a place for us to get together, and I think that is almost, we could say, historic and very important. I think we owe this to Javier Molea, who was really the person who pulled us all together, right? And so I think that Javier really does deserve an applause. Javier is a so I also wanted to, of course, thank Pan World Voices for all the people that is bringing every year to these amazing festivals, really great activities, bringing voices that we otherwise would not really hear or read because we're so exposed to so much, right? Including politics lately and Twitter. So that said, I wanted to say that I'm really very thrilled and honored to be moderating this panel. Thank you for inviting me to do that. With these three writers among, I have to say, among the best in Argentina today, and that is a lot to say. Because as you all know, Argentina has a very, very strong literary tradition, right? And they are really, I like to say, something else, even for Argentina. And also thrilled because the three of them actually happen to be acquaintances of mine, and that makes me even happier. And I have to say that Mariana and I actually have a tradition that we established in Guadalajara some years ago, where we met and had our hands made, literally, in wax. We went to the wax museum, right, and had our hands made in wax, and then the next time we returned, we also had another hand made in wax, right, that we both still have. They have been deteriorating in a very grotesque way, I hear. Of course it was her idea, right, because she's the freaky one, and I just went along with her, and now I can't stop, right? But I mean, I wanted to talk about this anecdote because I think that Mariana's work, right, is very concentrated in sort of, and I sort of how the body is impacted, right, by politics and by sort of the weirdness of us human beings, right? But this is also true for the works of Samanta and Pola, right? The three writers here do deal with the body in ways that are not sort of the ways that we commonly think about women writing about the body. Because it's writing that is tense, fierce, vehement, bloody sometimes, tense, scary, right, all of these things. And also sometimes fantastical, in the genre of the fantastic, right? And so maybe I would love to start with that question. If you could sort of refer to this sort of idea that has been sort of repeated about their work, and let me just read the quotes, that their work gets under the skin of the reader, that it's like pulling the rug from under our feet, making us feel with the character, right? Things that are sort of very present in their writing. And so the first question would be, how for the three of you, why the body, how is it different from other writing that you've read? Where does this come from? Does it come from your own Argentinian tradition? Does this also include sort of manly writing? We tend to think that men do not write about the body somehow. And but I'll let you talk. So that would be the question, like how do you relate to the body? What kinds of bodies do you want to talk about? And how does it engage or not with the Argentinian tradition or other traditions? If you can, I mean, and if you don't want to answer any of those questions and say something else, please do.
Who starts?
Why don't we start?
I start. Thank you very much for coming. I'm very glad there's no rain. I got very wet today. Everybody got very wet today. And, well, I certainly, I think my fiction is very Argentinian, and there's something in Argentina about the bodies that is very distinct to our country. And I was born during the dictatorship I'm older than that. But I spent my childhood during the dictatorship. There was always a dictatorship. And but what they did with the bodies basically was disappear the bodies. And I think that absence of the body somehow is a ghost in my stories. I think it's a ghost story. The ghost story thing comes from there, in a way. Argentinian literature for a long time, especially of men and women writers my age, has been accused of, again, the dictatorship, like it's an obsession. And as much as I wanted to run away from that is kind of my DNA, because I grew up there. I grew up in that horror story. So I keep writing about that horror story in a way. But other things happened also with the body thing. One was in the last few years being a woman. I never thought about myself, this is a weird thing to say, but as a writer I never thought about myself as a woman. I always felt like an androgynous being. And in my first novels the protagonists were men. And I have a real difficult time writing women. I couldn't do the voices of women. It was totally weird. That's why I started writing short stories, because in the short story I thought that I could manage the voice of a woman in a more constrained way. You have to have more tension in a short story. It's not.
Keep them on a leash.
Yeah, and I needed that because otherwise my women were very me. They spoke like me, they had my humor, and they were totally not people. I wanted them to be real people. And this led me to think a lot about women and the bodies of women and how women are in the conversation lately, in the political conversation a lot. I think my work, I can do things that are not political, but I'm interested in that. And the body as something political and the body of a woman as something political was something was very intense for me, although I never thought about it that way. I was just, so the stories were coming and there were women and there were women that were narrators. And to me it was like a literary exercise. And then I realized that we're all these women.
So now do you only write about women?
Huh?
So now do you only write about women?
No, I'm done with the women. Writing novels, they're all men. It's true. But the bodies that I write, the bodies that are burned, the bodies that are starved, bodies that are in danger, sometimes because they want to be in danger, bodies that disappear too, a lot. And I think that this is my ghost, and this is why these ghost stories have this absent body in the middle. And that's the paradox, is that the body, I think, is so present because in my fears is so absent. I think it's something like that.
Thank you.
I agree with Mariana that that the dictatorship is kind of our Gothic. We're a young country, so we don't have many castles. So instead of castles, we would have like this, detention camps, and those camps, like missing bodies. So you can rearrange a tradition around that. And regarding women, I in this book in Savage Theories, my narrator is a woman, and she turns into a predator. I like the idea of reverting the logic of predation and of harassment. So I wanted to turn her into a little bit of a stalker herself. But then, after I wrote the book, I read this beautiful novel, which I'm sure you've read it as well. It's called I Love Dick by Chris Cross. And I found that she had also invested herself in this particular trope of the haughty philosophical stalker, which I find particularly good for comedy. So yes, I think using women's bodies and turning them into evil predators, while thinking about what is our relationship as prey and predators, and how do we actually do things, is actually a way, or can be a way, to think about the revolutionary mind. When you think about what is the magic trick, right, that makes revolutions happen, or in a way how does it work, right? What is it that makes the charm that goes from theory into action? That has been kind of a question that, going through the 20th century, and has been a question that was certainly in the minds of those that were victims of this Gothic that Mariana was referring to. Well, I find this this passage between theory and action, very esoteric, and so I wanted to investigate on that, like how to turn that into a seduction plan. And so in a way, the narrator uses her body as a field of research and una atalaya desde donde attack.
Thank you. Samantha? ¿Quieres que te traduzca? So I'm going to more or less try to translate her, okay?
Sí, buenas tardes, yo soy la que va a hablar en español.
So she's going to speak in Spanish.
Sí, Gabriel García Márquez tiene una frase que me encanta, que él dice que el peor inglés, ese es el verdadero inglés internacional.
So García Márquez says that the worst English is the
International.
sorry. The true English is the international English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that I talk. Pero no es suficiente para las respuestas.
It's not enough for answers.
Sí, me encantó lo que dijiste, Mariana, de empezar a escribir desde el hombre y después llegar a la mujer, porque fue exactamente lo que me pasó a mí y nunca antes lo había escuchado y creo que por ahí nos está pasando más de lo que creemos. Es decir,
she's saying that she found her answer very engaging because this is the same thing that happened to her, that she really started with a masculine narrator and then she turned to female subjects.
Entonces, digamos, empecé con cuentos donde mis narradores eran masculinos, pero también porque esos narradores eran masculinos, y esto me di cuenta mucho tiempo después, eran hombres muy estereotipados y eran personajes de los que yo todo el tiempo me estaba burlando.
Okay, so she started writing short stories about men, and these men seemed to her quite stereotypical, and it felt like they had to be that way because she was laughing and she was sort of making comedy or parody out of them.
Y cuando fue pasando el tiempo, mis personajes empezaron a ser femeninos, y ya en la primera novela, en Distancia de Rescate, que es Fever Dream, es un personaje absolutamente femenino, todos los personajes son femeninos.
Okay, so, and then she moved to female subjects, as in this novel called Distancia de Rescate, but it was translated to Fever Dream. I'm going to ask you why later. Then it's all characters are women, and actually they're, oh no.
Y creo que es ahí, o sea, creo que es cuando finalmente pude escribir desde mi cabeza de mujer, que pude empezar a conectar con otras cosas mucho más profundas, o sea, lo siento como calar mucho más hondo, incluso conectar con lo físico, que es lo que estabas hablando vos hace rato.
So when she started writing about women, and particularly in this novel, she felt that she could go sort of in depth with things that she had not really explored before, and she really feels that those things, that depth has to do with the sort of the bodily condition of women.
Y también en este libro en particular lo que me pasó es que es un libro que se escribe desde la cabeza, porque es un diálogo entre dos personajes, todo pasa acá adentro, y sin embargo es un libro en donde necesariamente el cuerpo tiene muchísima presencia.
And so it's a book written in dialogue. You'll see when we open up for reading. Actually, want to do that immediately after this. And it's in a dialogue, so it's very mental in that way. It's very discursive, right? But at the same time, it deals with very, very sort of important things that happen to the bodies of these women and characters. See?
Yeah.
Yes, no? Okay, great. So since I just said that we would read, and I think it will give you a sense of how the books sound and sort of the different textures and the different tones of these books, why don't we read, and then we will continue with questions so that it'll also give us some dynamism. So, Pola, why don't you, are you going to read with your translator?
Well, yeah, we can.
Is he here, Pola's translator?
No, but we said that I'm going to read like a couple pages, and then he will dashingly appear.
So why don't you why don't you take my seat for a second?
No,
Really?
but yeah, like when we reach the point, we can change.
When she needs me.
Thank you, Ron. So this is a part where the narrator, whose name is Rosa, she's directing this to her professor that she's obsessed with. Oh, Augustus, the first time you spoke to me under the words, I failed to understand. But you immediately noted my unease and moved your head impossibly slowly. as if noodling in agreement. You think me excessively prideful, but I assure you that all this time I have suffered a great deal, and I have missed you even more. That is why, before launching my attack, I need to know your state of mind. Don't let obsessive thoughts bewitch you, because what I want to say to you, what I howl so you might hear, has more to do with protecting the courtly synthesis of your legacy than with my negligible, insubstantial role in the events themselves. It is a strange world, yes. You must learn that you're alone, even when followed by multitudes. Perhaps, by the grace of Leibniz, there exists some other possible world where you wouldn't need me. Who knows? Not even Leibniz. Maybe, in that other world, your theory and your words and the single arrow that is time would together have been sufficient. You could have pushed forward without my help, conquering spaces and times, and it wouldn't have mattered to me in the slightest, because given the rules in such a world, you wouldn't need me. But that possible world could never really exist. It would be self-contradictory. My new activities have nothing to do with the things I was doing before, which were themselves docile copies of the things I thought I would be doing back when I first entered our house of higher learning, and thus enter your theory, Augustus, your doctrine which has changed everything. If you only knew the wild path my investigation had taken, the seditious spin of the steering wheel of my research. I was focused on baneful things, my dear. Perhaps baneful is not exactly the term I'm looking for, but it's an adjective that brings to mind the image of an eagle bearing down on its prey. I would love to bombard you with details. If you knew them, and it's unclear whether or not you're ever going to find out, still unclear, I know you will be proud of me. Don't ask me how, but I know. Would you like to know what is this all about? Of course you would, but I'm not going to tell you. Not yet. Don't get upset. Soon I will see to it that you know entirely too much. Soon I will illuminate the dark side of your philosophy. What were we talking about? Oh yes, that the world without me could never exist in any form whatsoever, because my presence is a necessary condition for your theory. It's true, of course, that I can't have been its efficient cause. You were able to formulate the initial phase of your doctrine all on your own, with no need for me to act directly upon you or it. Or perhaps I did, but only in the world of dreams, my dear, where Cinderella theories dance alongside their fairies. In the world of things, however, things have changed a great deal. You must face this fact, Augustus. Because in the world where your theory exists, where it truly exists in its purest, more revolutionary form, there too exists the act that sets and converts your theory into action. The act is thus intrinsic to the doctrine, it is part of it. And if you were to ask how I know this, well, I would answer that I owe it all to you, because I read it in your theory, and in reading I consummated a rite of initiation, at once wondrous and absolute. You have given me a lever with which to move the world, and the only thing that matters to me is learning how to move the lever. I know perfectly well that you love us all equally, but I also know that some of us are more dear to you than others. Some of us understand what is drawing near, ravenous and blood-stained, the vertiginous tiger, and we fear nothing. The greatest leaders perished precisely when they no longer knew how to revolutionize the revolution that they had begun. And you wouldn't want that to happen now, do you, my dear? You want your name raised up above the supralunar clouds where reign the perfect forms of thought. Isn't that so? The change must come from within you. You don't need much, you only need me. My eyes are closed, and the bubbles are up to my chin. His big grey hand grazes into my tawny belly, while his other hand pushes my hair back, his fingers unable to let go. In your mouth, I am the plaything of a monster. I let my thoughts swim in the darkness until I can't hear them anymore. Over and over I envision your arrival as a session of silent films projected in the filthy white facade of the department building. This is my transcription of the facts, and this is the amazing Roy Kesey.
We're having technical difficulties.
Oh, I think we said that. Yeah. Or no, Roy. He drove all the way from DC. This is why I think he should read. But if you don't want, it's fine.
No, I didn't.
Okay. I don't know, Roy. I mean, because it doesn't make sense to just read this part if you. I mean, right?
You're gonna read.
Come on. Okay. I don't know.
Augusto Garcia Roxler makes his way up the wet sidewalk, locked deep in conversation with his own thoughts. His gaze suddenly shifts, drawn to the presence of a, and then there are words crossed out as the narrator is sort of editing her own mind. I was only going to read the words that were crossed out, but I'll just get it. Drawn to the presence of a very pretty, gorgeous young woman sitting near the entrance to Casa del Saber. The professor stops short. He recognizes her immediately. The enigmatic silhouette, modestly half hidden, is that of none other than his destiny, his nemesis, his significant other, his most deeply beloved student. Augustus clears his throat, thinks, should I speak to her directly? He imagines that this exquisite young woman is probably furious because he hasn't given her the time of day. Seems to have ears only for the sycophants that surround him, even though he knows that she is the only one for him. He owes the most lucid elements of his doctrine entirely to her. Augustus wants to go to her, but he's nothing but an old chicken shit. Now, he fears being rejected because he's such a chicken shit. And deep down inside, he's secretly afraid of her, and also because he's nothing but an old chicken shit who's lost his strength and lets himself be manipulated by the sinister sycophants around him. As an unrecognizable voice resounds from off stage, from within his brain. It shouts something that will determine the outcome of this nightmarish story. Augustus watches her eyes. She turns her swan-like neck, looks back at him. He roots around in one of his shadowy pockets, extracts a wrinkled copy of his notes on my comments in his class, whispers something that we can't quite catch, but its meaning is clear. There are admiring comments penciled in the margins. He looks at her. Overcome with passion, he caresses her with his eyes now, lowers his glance and cries, begging for forgiveness. My love, I can't take it anymore. I belong to you as well. Now, with destiny in his eyes. He invites her back to his house now, and she responds with a miss to join him at his regular table at Platon for croissants and a cup of tea. Thank you.
So Mariana, why don't you?
Okay, you want me to do the
Yes.
in Spanish?
So we can
Yeah.
hear some of the Spanish and a little bit of
Okay.
English.
I have to look for this story here, not because I'm a millennial, which obviously I'm not. But it's here. I feel very young. It's very nice. Mi familia cree que estoy loca porque elegí vivir en la casa familiar de Constitución, la casa de mis abuelos paternos, una mole de piedra y puertas de hierro pintadas de verde sobre la calle Virreyes, con detalles art déco y antiguos mosaicos en el suelo, tan gastados que, si se me ocurriera encerar los pisos, podría inaugurar una pista de patinaje. Pero yo siempre había estado enamorada de esa casa, y de chica, cuando se le alquilaron un bufé de abogados, recuerdo mi mal humor, cuánto extrañaba esas habitaciones de ventanas altas y el patio interno que parecía un jardín secreto, mi frustración porque cuando pasaba por la puerta ya no podía entrar libremente. No añoraba tanto a mi abuelo, un hombre callado que apenas sonreía y nunca jugaba. Ni siquiera lloré cuando murió. Lloré mucho más cuando después de su muerte perdimos la casa, al menos por unos años. Constitución es el barrio de la estación de trenes que vienen del sur hasta la ciudad. Fue, en el siglo XIX, la zona donde vivía la aristocracia porteña. Por eso existen estas casas, como la de mi familia, Y hay muchas más mansiones convertidas en hoteles o asilos de ancianos o en derrumbe del otro lado de la estación en barracas. En 1887 las familias aristocráticas huyeron hacia el norte de la ciudad, escapando de la fiebre amarilla. Pocas volvieron, casi ninguna. Con los años, familias de comerciantes ricos como mi abuelo pudieron comprar las casas de piedra con gárgolas y llamadores de bronce. Pero el barrio quedó marcado por la huida, el abandono, la condición de indeseado, y está cada vez peor. Now I switch. You will be able to understand, I think. But if you know how to move around the neighborhood, if you understand its dynamics, its schedules, it isn't dangerous, or it's less dangerous. I know that on Friday nights, if I go down to Plaza Garay, I might end up caught in a fight between several possible adversaries. The mini narcos from Calle Ceballos, who defend their territory from invaders and chase down the countless people who owe them money. The brain-dead addicts, who get offended at anything and react by lashing out with broken bottles. The drunk and tired transvestites who have their own patches of pavement to defend. I also know that if I walk home along the avenue, I'm more exposed to muggers than if I take Solis, even though the avenue is well lit and Solis is dark. Most of the few street lights it has are broken. You have to know the neighborhood to learn these strategies. I've been robbed twice on the avenue, both times by kids who ran past and grabbed my bag and pushed me to the ground. The first time I filed a police report. By the second, I knew it was pointless. The police let teenage muggers rob on the avenue as far as the highway bridge, 3 free blocks, in exchange for favors. There are certain tricks to being able to move easily in this neighborhood, and I've mastered them perfectly. Though sure, sometimes unexpected can always happen, sorry. It's a question of not being afraid, of making a few necessary friends, saying hi to the neighbors even if they're criminals, especially if they're criminals, of walking with your head high, paying attention. I like the neighborhood. No one understands why, but I do. It makes me feel sharp and audacious on my toes. There aren't many places like Constitución left in the city, except for the slums on its outskirts. The rest of the city is richer and friendlier, huge and intense, but easy to live in. Constitución isn't easy, and it's beautiful. All those once luxurious alcoves, like abandoned temples now occupied by unbelievers, who don't even know that inside those walls hymns to old gods once rang out. There are also a lot of people who live on the street. Not as many as in Plaza Congreso, 2 kilometers from my front door. Over there it's a regular encampment right in front of the government buildings, scrupulously ignored but also so visible that every night squads of volunteers come to hand out food, check the children's health, distribute blankets in winter and fresh water in summer. The homeless in Constitución are more neglected and help rarely reaches them. Across from my house is a corner with a shuttered convenience store whose doors and windows are bricked up to keep occupiers out. A young woman lives with her son on the sidewalk in front of it. She's pregnant, maybe a few months along, although you never know with the junkie mothers in the neighborhood because they are so thin. The son must be around 5 years old. He doesn't go to school and he spends his days on the subway, begging for money in exchange for prayer cards of Saint Expeditus. I know because I've seen him at night on the train on my way home from the city center. He has a disturbing method. After offering the prayer cards to the passengers, he obliges them to shake hands, a brief and very grimy squeeze. The passengers have to contain their pity and disgust. The kid is very dirty and he stinks. Anyway, I never saw anyone compassionate enough to take him out of the subway, bring him home, give him a bath, call social services. People shake his hand, buy his prayer cards. His forehead is always wrinkled into a frown, and when he talks, his voice is short. He tends to have a cold, and sometimes he smokes with other kids from the subway or around Constitución. One night, we walked together from the subway station to my house. He didn't talk to me, but we kept each other company. I asked him some dumb questions. His age, his name. He didn't answer. He wasn't a sweet or innocent child. When I reached the door of my house, though, he said goodbye. Bye, neighbor, he said. Bye, neighbor, I replied. this is the first story of the book. It's a book of short stories, and it's called The Dirty Kid, El Chico Sucio, and it's about that boy and bad things happened to him afterwards.
So this is a hard question. So who does not speak Spanish or understand Spanish? Please raise your hand without any shame. Okay, so we're going to do a bilingual reading, and so do you want me to do the woman and you do the boy, or do you want to do the... que como 4 o 5 personas levantaron la mano porque no hablan castellano. Entonces le leemos.
Entonces yo leo la mujer.
Dale. Okay, so this is a conversation, and it's between a woman and a boy, sort of a strange boy. They're like worms.
¿Qué tipo de gusanos?
Like worms, all over.
El chico es el que habla, me dice las palabras al oído. Yo soy la que pregunta, ¿gusanos en el cuerpo?
Yes, in the body.
¿Gusanos de tierra?
No, another kind of worms.
Está oscuro y no puedo ver. Las sábanas son ásperas, se pliegan debajo de mi cuerpo. No me puedo mover, digo.
It's the worms. You have to be patient and wait. And while we wait, we have to find the exact moment when the worms come into being.
¿Por qué?
Because it's important. It's very important for us all.
Intento sentir, pero mi cuerpo no responde.
What else is happening in the yard outside the house? Am I in the yard?
No, no estás, pero está Carla, tu madre. La conocí unos días atrás cuando recién llegamos a la casa.
What is Carla doing?
Termina el café y deja la taza en el pasto, junto a su reposera.
What else?
Se levanta y se aleja. Se olvida las hojotas que quedan unos metros más allá, en las escaleras de la pileta, pero no le digo nada.
Why not?
Quiero esperar a ver qué hace.
And what does she do?
Se cuelga la cartera al hombro y se aleja en su bikini dorada hasta el coche. Hay algo de mutua fascinación entre nosotras, y en contraste breves lapsos de repulsión. Puedo sentirlo en situaciones muy precisas. ¿Estás seguro de que es necesario hacer estas observaciones? ¿Tenemos tiempo para esto?
Your observations are very important. Why are you in the yard?
Acabamos de regresar del lago y tu madre no quiere entrar a mi casa.
She wants to save you any trouble.
¿Qué tipo de problemas? Tengo que entrar y salir una y otra vez. Primero por las limonadas, después por el protector solar. No me parece que esto sea evitarme problemas.
Why do you go to the lake?
Quiso que le enseñara a manejar. Dijo que siempre había querido aprender, pero una vez en el lago ninguna de las dos tuvo la paciencia necesaria.
What is she doing now in the yard?
Abre la puerta de mi coche, se sienta al volante y revuelve un rato la cartera. Yo bajo las piernas de la reposera y espero. Hace demasiado calor. Después Carla se cansa de revolver y se agarra al volante con ambas manos. Está hace un momento mirando hacia el portón o quizás hacia una casa, mucho más allá del portón.
What else? Why are you quiet?
Que estoy anclada en este relato. Lo veo perfectamente, pero a veces me cuesta avanzar. ¿Será por lo que me inyectan las enfermeras?
No.
Pero voy a morirme en pocas horas. Va a pasar eso, ¿no? Es extraño que esté tan tranquila. Porque aunque no me lo digas, yo ya lo sé. Y sin embargo es algo importante para decirse a uno mismo.
None of this is important. We're wasting time.
Pero es verdad, ¿no? Que me voy a morir.
What else is happening in the yard?
Carla apoya la frente en el volante y sus hombros se sacuden un poco. Empieza a llorar. ¿Qué crees que podríamos estar? ¿Crees que podríamos estar cerca del punto exacto en el que nacen los gusanos?
Keep going. Don't forget the details.
Carla no hace ningún ruido, pero logra hacer que me levante y camine hacia ella. Me gustó desde el principio. Desde el día en que la vi cargando los 2 grandes baldes de plástico bajo el sol, con su gran rodete pelirrojo y su jardinero de jean. No había visto a nadie usar uno de esos de mi adolescencia, y fui yo quien insistió con las limonadas, y le invitó a tomar mate a la mañana siguiente, y a la siguiente, y a la siguiente también. ¿Estos son los detalles importantes?
We'll know the exact moment from a detail. You have to be observant.
Cruzo el jardín. Cuando esquivo la pileta, miro hacia el comedor y reviso a través del ventanal que Nina, mi hija, siga dormida, abrazada a su gran topo de peluche. Entro al coche por el lado del acompañante. Me siento, pero dejo la puerta abierta y bajo la ventanilla, porque hace mucho calor. El gran rodete de Carla está un poco caído, desarmado hacia un lado. Apoya la espalda en el asiento, consciente de que ya estoy ahí, otra vez junto a ella, y me mira. Si te lo cuento, dice, ya no vas a querer verme más. Pienso en qué decir, algo así como, pero Carla, por favor, no seas ridícula. Pero en cambio, miro los dedos de sus pies, tenso en los pedales, las piernas largas, los brazos delgados pero fuertes. Me desconcierta que una mujer 10 años más grande que yo sea tanto más hermosa. Si te cuento, dice, no vas a querer que él juegue con Nina. Pero Carla, por favor, ¿cómo no voy a querer?
Okay, thank you. So by the way, I am not the translator. I'm just helping out here. The translation is from Megan McDowell, who also translated your work.
Mariana.
Yeah, Mariana. So I'm going to shift a little bit. I'm not going to bore you with too many questions because I want to open the floor also to your questions since you're here. But I was thinking the other day when I was thinking of presenting this panel of an essay of James Wood that you all, I think, know, where he talks about sort of this issue of the so-called world literature, and he talks about somebody else's editorial at N+1, the journal, the literary journal, where the editor talks about world literature turning into global literature, meaning writing that is easily understandable, easily translatable, sort of that doesn't really seem very local to the places where it's being written, right? And so James Wood sort of talks about sort of the need of having international books that are actually not so easy to the reader here, and he calls that thorny internationalism, que en español sería como un internacionalismo espinoso, right? And I actually think these three writers are that, right? And I think also the sort of the translation of more thorny internationalism is becoming important, and I don't really know whether it's just because the politics have become so intense here today, where we don't want so much complacency and we want to really read things that are tense and sort of more challenging. So the question would be if you could talk about precisely the political elements that are inscribed in your books, right? The political and the biopolitical, because Pola actually is involved in sort of the politics of university, right? And university thinking and challenging a little bit the idea of civilization and knowledge and sort of inverting that power, I think. And Mariana is talking about a little bit sort of the context of dictatorship is there. You have worked on the sort of toxic biopolitical background. And since we really didn't talk about this yet, maybe you can refer and sort of tell everybody here how sort of the connection with politics, which you already did a little bit, but maybe you can sort of add some more.
Yeah. Well, I think that...
And how it is sort of thorny versus, you know, you said dictatorship is sort of almost a cliche now in Argentinian literature. How is sort of...
Well, it is, yes. But to me, these thorny things, let's say, I, as a reader, my favorite style, not style, but my favorite writers are are American and from a very specific place. My favorite is Southern Gothic. So I never wanted something I always wanted thorny. Let's say. And I think maybe the opposite is, calls the attention because in the other way of the translation, like languages like Spanish into English, have been like more standard literature, let's say. I don't think all of it, but it happens.
So the other way around is also true?
No, I think the other way around, no. In American literature that we read is very specific. And I've been raised with very specific things. I don't know, I like John Fanten. He writes about the 30s in LA. And I don't know anything about the of the studies in LA, but I love his book. And I think all his books, but I don't, the other thing didn't happen, or the other way around, because basically it's a political thing. Like the English language is a dominant language in everything. And it's the language of power. I'm sorry, but it is. And so that's what we read. And so I can, my favorite literature was, as I was saying, is a very specific geographically literature of a country that I've never been when I was 11 years old and I was reading, I don't know, Carlos McCullers or whatever. Or Flannery O'Connor is one of my influences.
Mariana, translated to Argentinian Spanish or coming from Spain?
Well, it changed because in the 70s and the 60s we had local translation. Argentinian Spanish is different. We don't say, many of you speak Spanish so you're going to understand. We don't use tú. We don't say tú eres. We say vos sos. So it's completely different. The Uruguayos, Javier, they do a completely weird thing too, much more weird than this. And that's, I don't know how they understand each other. But it's weird. But so we used to have local translators that weren't that specific, but were much more neutral than what the Spaniard translations are. That sometimes in a very oral novel, for example, they use words that are very like the Madrid ghetto words. We don't have no idea what they are. Like, I don't know, they use, for example, una cazadora. Cazadora is a jacket, but for me, a cazadora is a huntress. So, se puso la cazadora, he put the cazadora on, and I'm thinking of a man that is wearing a woman that hunts. And when we used to do translations, this was different. A bit different, but I read both of them. But yeah, I was surprised that my book, I think my book is very local. So I was surprised that it was translated and that people, or some people, can relate, because to me there's very specific things that are very Argentinian. And I understand too that there are things that are very global, like, I don't know, inequality, violence against women themes, that are, I know, global conversation themes. But there are other things that are subtleties that are very difficult to translate. But when I think about the things I've read all my life, I know I miss a lot of things too. And I live with that with no problem. Yes. It wasn't a problem to me. I don't want to understand everything. I think there's a desperation for understanding everything that really gets on my nerves. Like, it's okay.
Yes, a sort of nostalgia for transparency.
Yes.
That this is the global nostalgia for transparency.
Yes, why do we want to know everything? And sometimes my stories are purposely don't tell everything. And it's not just ellipses, it's just a wish to, for me and for the readers, to be a little anxious and disturbed about things, because I think that's how we live.
Also with the context?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Thank you. Pola, do you want to refer to this? Or to any other thing that...
Yeah, I think, maybe we can specify the thorns, not only in terms of, the locality and, how beautiful it is to kind of feel the flavor of a certain place and, use literature as a way of traveling, right? Which is great. It's much cheaper than a plane, and of course you can read while on the plane, which you cannot do. You cannot combine so easily other things. But to me, the thorns that I would prefer are connected to language, to the way one can explore the passivity of language in certain ways, and how Spanish can really drive you crazy, because it's such a luscious language. It's very luxurious. you can make endless subordinations, for example, which is something that you wouldn't have a well-formed phrase in English and it would be infinite, and you could have a well-formed phrase in Spanish and make it infinite. So this bountifulness, this endlessness of Spanish, it can be an attractive whole, and in that sense, I think the thorns that can be useful, against one's skin, or that I find that are fun, to go, are connected to that, to in fact, like, what kind of animal, is that book that has been translated. I really like this. There's a phrase by Elliot Weinberger. Something he wrote in this beautiful book that is called 19 Wakes, One Way, which is about this incredible poem in Chinese. And he says, he speaks about translations in terms of distorted families. Like sometimes you have, the very rebellious kid, that's something completely whatever he wanted. Like you could say that Borges with Virginia Woolf was a little bit of that rebellious kid. Like he went his way, and also with Faulkner when he's translated the poems. I remember that.
Oh, and the wild poems.
The wild poems. I said the poems. Yeah. He changed the ending.
He changed the ending, and he changed the pace. Like a farmer is very, there's a lot there, and Borges like kind of, I don't like this word. So it's dry. Yeah. Imagine Faulkner dry. He did that.
Yeah, it's true. And then you can also have this other kind of family where you have a kid that is like just too close to the dad, and so it's these translations that then don't really flourish into like a proper book. And so then I was thinking, okay, what kind of animal of a family have we created with Roy? Like, what is this? Because I'm so amazed at his translation. The fact that that he's a novelist like really played into that. So to me, it's I like this idea of translation as a collaboration, and I think I like this idea of internationalism in that sense, where you kind of like find kind of like a sort of translation of I don't know, like a particular Kronos that gets up eating these other goddesses, and reverts like this idea of a family as well. I think that is pretty much the challenge. Like what I don't know what kind of animal are we devouring when we read. That's what I want to find out when I read a book, and what I'm always looking for.
Bueno, para mí siento que en algunas cosas sucedieron al revés, es decir, porque bueno, mi historia, el contexto de mi historia sucede en el campo argentino, donde...
Sí, pero...
Sí, donde, Argentina en este momento está haciendo una especie de gran experimento de cultivo con herbicidas, ya con agrotóxicos muy letales, ¿no?
So the story, the novel, is set in the sort of rural area in Argentina, where Argentina has invested in this sort of experiment of really filling out the countryside with pesticides and all kinds of toxic materials that are sort of endangering the people, right?
O sea, cuando empecé a escribir esta historia, empecé a investigar y empecé a entender lo que estaba pasando, lo terrible que era y el vacío legal que había detrás de todo esto. Entonces pensé que, estaba, de verdad, lo político me entró en el cuerpo por primera vez y dije, no, yo tengo que decir los nombres de estas, o sea, tengo que decir las marcas, tengo que decir qué está pasando, tengo que decir cómo evitar estos accidentes que pueden pasar a nivel hogareño.
Okay, so when I started writing, I had never really, I think she's saying that she had never really engaged with political issues, but when she started reading about what was happening and finding out sort of the horrors of sort of all these products, she felt that she felt very political, and she felt that she really needed to write something that engaged with the sort of that political problem. And she found herself thinking whether she should name names and sort of really sort of point at specific responsibilities.
Y al mismo tiempo la historia expulsaba completamente todo el tiempo ese tipo de cosas. O sea, era imposible sostenerlo.
And at the same time, as you have heard, the story didn't really sort of have space to fit in that kind of information because it's actually sort of this kind of narrative, this dialogue, right?
Exacto. Entonces hice un compromiso conmigo misma y dije, bueno, vamos a dejar eso por fuera del libro, pero vamos a atacar esto en las entrevistas y en la contratapa del libro y en todo lo que rodea el libro.
Yeah, bueno, están los cuerpos, ¿no?
Sí, pero es muy delicado.
Yeah, so she decided to leave it out, and she felt that when the time of interviews came, that it would be then that she would address these issues sort of more specifically, and she would leave sort of the information outside of the novel, right?
Y en términos de, no sé si de traducción, pero de burbuja, de vivir en Argentina y de haber escrito eso en ese contexto, para mí este gran monstruo culpable de todo esto era un monstruo que no me podía tocar y que no me podía leer, ¿no?
Dices afuera. Adentro de Argentina.
Adentro de Argentina.
Ah, okay. No sé si te entendí. Well, I'm going to try to translate. I don't know if I got this well. So you felt that what was happening inside was sort of in a bubble, that even in Argentina wasn't a discussion?
Claro, digamos que mi gran monstruo es un monstruo norteamericano. Y recién cuando esto se tradujo, porque yo dije, ay Dios, o sea, ahora sí, el libro está diciendo todo lo que de verdad está diciendo.
So it suddenly sort of became more relevant here when it was translated, because we are, I think, probably more aware of these issues. I don't know, more aware is a good term, but sort of here it became a theme, more than in Argentina? Oh, interesting. So it became more of a theme here when it got translated in Argentina. So it was a sort of a inverse effect.
No, claro, lo que sentía es que me sentía, digamos, protegida, digamos, que nada iba, yo podía hablar de todo eso y no iba a pasar nada, ¿no? Pero cuando esto llega a Estados Unidos, mis miedos se potencian.
So she thought that while writing about this in Argentina, nothing would really happen, so nobody would really pay attention. But then when it became sort of an international, it said internationally, sort of in other places, then it could backfire. So, yeah, very interesting. So, you mentioned translation, and I thought that that is also sort of a question that has to be asked because we are talking about your books in English, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, actually thinking back to thorny translations, what was untranslatable in the books? Or what had to be completely changed? Or sort of what experience did you have with your translators? Was it an intense translation? Was it easy? Was it hard? I mean, did you feel that the books were sort of losing something or adding something? I was thinking about what you said about Borges, because Borges in Orlando, he actually has, Orlando, Wolf's Orlando, he is going to publish a book. And Borges made the publishing house the one where the book was going to appear in Argentina. So it was Editorial Sur, where Orlando was going to publish his book in the future.
Yes, and he was
so he was adding and subtracting, right? So that's sort of that question, right?
Yeah.
What additions and subtractions did the process of translation mean?
There's something about my translator is Megan McDowell. She lives in Chile. So I think there's lots of things she gets, of the things that I thought that were untranslatable, that had a lot more to do with the context than with the language. It's a certain sense of dread, many things about history. There's a short story that most are horror stories, but others are not. And one happens during one of the very big economic crises that was in the late 80s. We always have an economic crisis, but sometimes it's worse. And this was bad. It was a hyperinflation of 1,000 a month or something. I don't remember. I remember buying cigarettes for my mother, and in the morning it was 10 pesos, and in the night it was 100. For real, I'm not exaggerating. And these kind of things had in our memories are printed in a way that have a sense of abandonment from the state and a sense of people really left on their own, that I think it's in the language of the stories. And I thought that that mix, that sense of fragility of the people, of the bodies, let's say, was a bit untranslatable. But I don't know, she lives in South America, and something contagious about the uncertainty of South America came into the translation. It's true also that I'm not very obsessive about it.
You are not?
No. And
So you did not read the translation?
not that much, no. No. And I actually enjoy when I have to read in a context like this, because it seems to me that it's written by someone else. And it's written better. Like when this is better than Spanish. And the same thing happened to me with the French translation, which is totally weird, because it's like, well, it works in all the languages except in mine. And, but there was not much of a conversation. I think Megan is not very intrusive that way, and she owns the text. She makes it her own, and I actually like that. I don't, in my experience as an author, I don't want to be very intrusive. I think when it's translated, it really belongs to the translator too. That's why it's so interesting. Like, for example, Samanta is nominated by this big prize, and it's a translation prize. And if you get the money, half of it will go for Megan. And I think it's very honest, because in the translation, the translator kind of becomes sort of an author. Mm-hmm. And I'm comfortable with that process. I don't get crazy. I mean, I don't know. The book has been translated into Swedish. What I am going to do with that? There's no, I mean, she wrote to me, she's very nice. And she asked me some things, and I answered the things she asked me, and that's about all I can do. And people tell me, it's a very good translation. I say, oh, thank you very much. I have no idea. And I don't know, just they just emailed me the cover of the Taiwanese. That is, why are they going to read in Taiwan about me anyway? So there's a thing that you have to let it go, I think, at one point. And realize that this process, this alchemy of translation, has to really be that, has to be really the work of the translator and his own text or her own text. And so I'm not really obsessive about it. I hardly read them, and for real, what I care most about is the people that read. Ebe Ujar is she's 80-something, writer from Argentina, and she always says, I don't care about translations because I only want my people to read me. I don't think that exactly, precisely, but in a way, I learned from her to let go of the translation and understand that this is, different people is going to read me, it's going to have another interpretations, and I don't want to impose my interpretation of it. I can tell you what the book is about, but it's a different work.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Roy and I worked a lot in the translation, mainly because well, I guess we're both obsessive, but also because the book it's traversed by a lot of quotes. Like there are characters that are hacking Google Earth. In some part there are characters that are, that's my baby and I need to feed the baby, so I will end this question and I will hang out. And yes. Well, I mean, among the other quotes, the characters, they make a game of, out of Dirty War. Dirty War was something that is this Gothic event that took place in the 70s when we were all born. And so the characters make a video game with that. Also, I mean, the novel discusses this issue because, at the time I was writing it, I was very, very angry at a particular political situation, which entailed kind of crowning the heroes of the revolution that didn't take place as actual heroes. I will rephrase. There was a climate that was into romanticizing the 70s and the guerrilla in Argentina. Then that led to spirited populism, but at the time it was merely, I could see like the rise and this change in the public speak that wasn't like interested in actually you know, discussing what had actually happened in that time, what happened with Peronism, you know, what were the role of actually Perón, who actually set up the organization that would chase down the guerrilleros. So I felt that there were like so many paradoxes and so many people like not really, you know, interested in studying history that I kind of like set off, you know, this kind of comedic way of a novel to counter that and to discuss that. So you know, this is like another kind of lingo, of course, like, you know, this Argentinian history streaks, and so we worked a lot with that with Roy. Also, the novel has you know, this kind of, you know, duets of characters who are like kind of hanging out in Buenos Aires, kind of the underground. They're like complete nerds. They're having orgies. I don't know, like, I mean, things happen. Like yeah, technological and sexual games are involved, and also, you know, this narrator who's obsessed with seducing this montonero, this ex-guerrillero, as a way of communicating with the author of the theory, which I had found that this was kind of like this strange logic that was like ruling these 70s events in a way. There's this Marxist Leninist motto that says, when you conjure the state in the most monstrous way, then the conditions for the revolution, you know, will be set. And so I like this idea of like, you know, of like kind of turning that into a sort of like a erection. Like, how do you produce, you know, a particular event, how you go from theory into practice, and just because you want to see, you know, this monster kind of like coming to get you, you know, in a very howling way. So you know, all these tricks that are navigating inside of the novel and that inhabit the novel were part of our discussions with Roy. And the fact is that Roy is a phenomenon because he's an American. He even looks like a CIA agent, to boot. And he lived in Peru. Like, I don't think he even, like, I don't know if he went to Argentina at all. But I mean, he's amazing. And so yeah, we're working on my other book that is coming out next year. Sorry.
Goodbye, Pola.
Yes. Sí, para mí la experiencia con Megan también fue buenísima, la verdad, buenísima. Y estaba pensando que de toda la gente que se mete en tu texto, ¿no? Soy muy de dar a leer y de testear mucho los textos antes de publicarlos. Creo que el que más duele y el que más se mete es el traductor, ¿no?
Okay. So she is saying that she had an amazing experience with Megan, and that she tends to share her work before it gets published because she really wants to see and test how it's going. But the most intense relation that she had was actually with her translator.
Sí, porque digamos, siempre está los amigos de confianza que te leen o el editor que te lee y el texto a veces puede cambiar o virar un poco, pero cuando el texto llega al traductor ya está publicado el texto. Entonces cuando el traductor siempre encuentra 2 o 3 pequeños detalles que para los que somos muy obsesivos y muy controladores y perfeccionistas duelen un montón, aunque sean chiquititos.
Yeah. So basically she's also saying that the intensity of the reading of the translator makes the translator find things that nobody really saw in the original Spanish after it's been published. And what hurts probably the most, right, is that the translator always finds mistakes, right? And in this case, the translator found 2 or 3 mistakes that really hurt because the book also has been published already.
Claro, y además me encantó la confianza que Megan tenía en el libro, ¿no? Porque entonces, por ejemplo, me acuerdo, en un mail me decía, alguien está tomando una limonada en la página 13 y en en esa misma escena se vuelve en la página 80 y está y deja la chocolatada sobre la mesa, ¿no? Eso se hacía a propósito para generar confusión, ¿no? Decía Megan. Estaba dándole el texto que de verdad no daba por ahí, o sea, divina.
So what she's saying is that so there's a moment where they're drinking lemonade and this happens in page, I don't know, 20? There we go. Page 20. In page 80, they return to the same scene, and now they're actually drinking chocolate milk. And so Megan wrote back and said, "Oh, I'm sure that you put this just to make it a little bit more confusing, right?" And so she trusted that that this was made on purpose.
Y después algunas pequeñas, no discusiones, pero digamos, pensar juntas algunas cosas, como por ejemplo, hay cosas que son intraducibles. Por ejemplo, yo estaba obsesionada, para mí era muy importante que uno de los personajes se asomara por una cortina de plástico. Que además, yo no sé ni si para los argentinos se entiende que es una cortina de plástico. Yo la llamaba cortina de plástico, porque son estos plásticos, no, son, ¿ves? Que no se entienden. Son unas cortinas que hay en el campo, que se usan muchísimo, que son cortinas de plástico, pero el plástico está cortado en tiras.
No, ya sé, como en la carnicería.
Claro.
Sí. Okay. So there's something that she was very sort of keen on having translated, and it had to do with plastic curtains. That nobody really knows what they are, and I was asking whether it was the sort of bath curtain, and no, it's not. It's actually these like little pieces, not threads, but sort of maybe 1-inch pieces of plastic. You actually find this in, I don't know here, but in Latin America you find this in the sort of meat stores.
And groceries too, yeah.
Grocery stores, right? And so she was very keen on that, and
Para mí era importante eso, tenía que ver con la historia, o sea, yo estaba bastante atada a esa imagen, pero también explicar palabra a palabra qué era eso y cómo era ese material en inglés, o sea, llevaba tanto tiempo que distraía de la situación.
Yeah, the paraphrasing would have distracted of the whole situation, right?
Sí. Así que eso hubo que dejarlo, ¿no? Y después había cosas que sí eran muy importantes y nos las ingeniamos para explicarlas de otra manera, como por ejemplo la salita de emergencia, que es algo que reemplaza a un hospital o un médico en el campo argentino y que también para el inglés no existe. Y ahí...
So with the curtain, they decided not to do it and they just forgot about it. And then there's the small sort of, not a hospital, but it's like a small clinic, it's kind of a room where people would go in the countryside. It's not a regular hospital, it's not a regular clinic, and that also was a complication.
No, entonces Megan fue muy inteligente en medir qué tan importante era para la historia y para ese momento particular y esa tensión particular que estaba atravesando el personaje en ese momento, de tener y explicar todo eso o pasar de largo e incluso cambiar de material, ¿no? Y la cortina fuera otro material y listo.
So Megan had to sort of produce those hard choices on whether this was so important that it had to stay, or maybe the curtain could be, made of another material, or maybe the room had to be explained or not, and then she sort of took over and decided whether that would work, without making it sound American.
Claro,
Yeah,
exacto.
right. So maintaining its distinction, not making it American, but also making it understandable.
Exacto.
Yeah.
Pero pasa mucho también, no sé si a ustedes les pasa lo mismo, la diferencia de un traductor, entre un traductor y otro, ¿no? Porque, por ejemplo, mis traductores alemanes, tuve 2 traductores, y el nivel de obsesión y de... son tan, pero tan perfeccionistas, o sea, me han llegado a pedir hasta, digamos, los planos de las casas donde suceden los cuentos del
That's very Nabokovian. That's very Nabokovian. The Nabokovian would do that.
Wait, let me translate. So she's comparing Megan's obsession with the super obsession, ultra obsession of the German translator. She's had 2, and one of them would actually ask her to produce a map of like how the houses looked in one of her short stories, so that the translator could imagine the space.
Cuando, digamos, después de pasar por esos procesos y darte cuenta lo complejo que es a veces traducir algo, de pronto los italianos te mandan el libro ya hecho, no te preguntan bien.
Yes. So she's saying Italian translators actually don't need to send a question, you receive the book. Oh, by the way, this is my very short last question. A student at University of Austin who was working with your book said, why is this book called Fever Dream instead of Rescue Distance, which would be the literal translation?
Bueno, Rescue Distance tenía el
If you're listening,
problema...
Dinora, that's for you.
Tenía el problema de que, para el que no había leído el libro, se asociaba directamente a una cuestión de tráfico, ¿no? De un problema de tránsito, de la distancia que uno mantiene con el coche que tiene adelante, la distancia de frenado, digamos.
Yeah. So in English, that those two words would mean the distance that you keep with the car that is in front of you, and in Spanish.
En español, la distancia de rescate es la distancia que mantenemos con nuestros hijos. Yo tengo hijos, no, nuestros perros. Claro, la distancia que uno mantiene es una distancia de seguridad que mantenemos con ellos, ¿no? Entonces, digamos, ¿cuánto me toma correr y rescatarlo si algo le pasa en este mismísimo momento? Y todo el tiempo estamos haciendo ese cálculo.
So in Spanish, that distance is not with a car but with a child, right? How far can you be to save? I mean, how close can you be to save your child if something happens, right? So it's actually a very important distinction.
Pero yo creo que hay que confiar en los editores. O sea, a mí el título me gusta, entiendo que no es lo mismo, no es el título que yo elegí, por supuesto, pero creo que hay que confiar en ellos.
So she also sort of, as Mariana, is sort of more trustful of some editorial decisions that are made at the end. I don't know if we have time, but I would really love to hear questions from the public. It's hard to measure time when there's so many people on a panel. So
8:30.
yes, I have no idea because Javier, are you there? Do we have time?
2 questions.
2 questions. Okay. Make them sort of very substantial questions. Okay, question? No? No question? Oh, okay, back there. Sí. Speak loud, please. Sí, en español, dale.
Hola. Siendo el presente más fuerte de la literatura argentina, ¿cómo ven la relación entre el gobierno nuevo, macrista, más neoliberal, y la posición de escritoras que tienen? Si toman una posición, si no, si el mundo editorial ha cambiado, si sigue siendo lo mismo. ¿Cuál es la opinión? So my question was, being the strongest present Argentinian literature here, what is the reaction or opinion of the relationship between politics and literature in the actual de Argentina with the new neoliberal government of Macri?
La que quiera contestar.
I don't like them. Well, that sums up. And sums it up. But I think there's problems in the industry, but basically because the economy is not going very well, or as they hoped it was going to be. Like I think many voters believe that this is a neoliberal government, and many people thought that we were going to get out of a populist government and go into the future and be more modern, and what's going on is that the problems are deepening. Like it's not a neoliberal model. Like if you want to make me a transfer of money from your account to my account, it's impossible. It was impossible before, and supposedly it was because the economy was very close, and now it's still impossible, I don't know why. Just because they are totally inept. Even in the things that they are supposed to be good. That is kind of, free flow, that kind of thing. But, I don't know, as a writer, I like politics, I'm interested in politics, I'm Argentinian, I can't help it. This is our culture, this is what we do. We don't talk movies, we talk Perón. And we talk movies later. But first we talk Perón, and first it's like, what are you? And
Perón died in 1973 when she was born, so it's very,
My mother says my first word was La Presidenta, I was the wife of Perón. Before everything. That's what I said. I was from Mama to La Presidenta. This is the mind and the mentality. So it's very recent, it's just about 2 years or something, and I don't like it, and I don't like the right-wing turn of international politics in general. I think it's a reaction that started first as some kind of tiredness of the never fulfilled promises of the left.
Also, let's remember that in Argentina we have free education and free healthcare for everyone since ever. Okay.
So
And we have free university since 1918. The revolution of the universidad. You're all very welcome to go to Argentina because you will get great attention there.
Free anything.
I mean, like it's very. I mean, when we speak about right wing, I mean there are like such different things. I mean,
what right wing means here or there.
Yeah.
But I think
we will need a translator for that.
Yeah. But I think the reaction of the unfulfilled promises of the left or the populist movements are changing the tide to something that it really depends on what country are we talking about, and but it's kind of not what I like. Let's say.
Estamos de acuerdísimo.
She agrees. Any other question? No?
I just want to have a comment. With work at this with that translation, I do that to my husband every day.
Yeah?
He doesn't speak Spanish and he speaks 20 minutes. I translate it to my mother and she said, why did you speak 2 minutes and he spoke 20? And I said, oh wow.
Well, it's
But
like
it
that.
did a lot.
I wanted just to tell you something about the very short, about the
please.
translation with Megan, because I found it here and I remember. One of the stories, one of the protagonists is the only said, not the only, but the most important serial killer we had in Argentina that was in the beginning of the 20th century. And at one point, this is real, when the police was looking at him naked, this is like a practice that those days apparently was very normal, they showed him the body of the child that he had killed, and he had a 25 centimeters erection. This is what the policeman says. I didn't invent it, huh? And Megan was like, are you sure it's 25 centimeters erection? And I said, but Megan is a historical character, like I'm not making it up. I know 25 centimeters erection is an anomaly. But it's not my imaginative anomaly, it's what okay. And she translated it, she came back, and she was very obsessed with this because she was very disturbed by this. So one day we talked on the phone, and I said to her, well, what do you, and she said, let's put an enormous erection. And it's an enormous erection. And I think that this was the hardest discussion, because I was like, but he had a 25 centimeters erection, what can I do?
Yeah, that was a thorny one.
Yeah, that was a thorny one, yeah.
Okay, so I think we don't have enough more time, but I would really want to thank you. It was really great having this conversation. The authors are going to be signing books here, so if you want to get your book and get your signature, your autograph, please